I've covered this league for years. Seen locker rooms explode, deals collapse, and reputations shredded. But what you're about to hear almost never went public. A single moment on the sideline, a decision made in whispers, has quietly put the NFL under pressure the public doesn't even know exists. It happened late last season on a crisp November evening in Cleveland. The Browns were facing a division rival, but no one remembers the score. What they do remember, if anyone is willing to admit it, was what happened off the field. In the midst of a high-stakes game, a heated argument unfolded on the sideline, caught only by a few cameras, mostly ignored by the broadcasts. Coaches whispered. Staffers froze. Players turned their heads. And in the shadows of that moment, a decision was being made that could ripple through the league for years. Names that carry weight in locker rooms were involved. Individuals who built their careers on control and influence suddenly found themselves cornered by events they could not control. And yet, nobody outside that inner circle was supposed to ever know. Confidential memos, unrecorded phone calls, and a chain of text messages now serve as the only breadcrumbs of what really happened. By the end of this video, you will understand the magnitude of that single incident, why it shook more than just one team, and how the league's response or lack thereof raised uncomfortable questions about accountability, power, and the unspoken rules that govern America's most watched sport. This isn't speculation. This isn't rumor. This is speculation. This isn't rumor. This is a sideline incident that for months has haunted insiders, unsettled executives, and left players questioning their own safety and their future. And now, for the first time, the story is coming out piece by piece, from the inside, unfiltered, and under the pressure that the NFL never anticipated. The night was cold. The lights of First Energy Stadium casting long shadows across the field. From the stands, it looked like any other game. But the cameras, those few that caught the sideline, recorded something that no fan should have seen. It began subtly. A glance here, a whispered word there. Coaches shifted uneasily on the sidelines, not from the pressure of the game, but from something else, something off script. The players, usually absorbed in the rhythm of the match, noticed it too. A veteran linebacker, one known for his composure, tapped his helmet nervously, eyes darting toward the coach's huddle. Staff members exchanged brief, clipped words, their faces tight, their hands trembling slightly. Inside the team's operations room, texts were flying. Screens flickered. Decisions that were supposed to be routine suddenly demanded immediate attention. A coordinator called a colleague in the office, voice low, controlled, but the urgency leaked through. One phrase kept repeating, unrecorded but unavoidable in its weight. We cannot let this go public. Power dynamics shifted visibly on the sideline that night. The head coach, a man with decades of experience, found himself questioning the authority of his own assistants. One defensive coach, normally deferential, subtly challenged a call. No words were broadcast, but the tension was palpable. An argument not loud, but heavy with implications, erupted behind the bench. And that argument, witnessed by fewer than 10 people and recorded by none, would trigger a cascade of decisions that would later haunt everyone involved. Observers from the league office were already aware, though publicly they pretended otherwise. Internal emails sent after the game painted a picture of unease. Questions about accountability, judgment, and player safety were raised. Yet every memo ended with the same phrase, handle internally. A euphemism that in NFL language often means bury it. Ignore it. Pretend it never happened. And that's when the real pressure began. From the inside, players started whispering. Staffers began second-guessing. The incident was small, arguably mundane, but in a league built on control and appearances, it became a fault line. Every action, every hesitation, every glance was scrutinized. Who had overstepped? Who had failed to act? And more importantly, who would bear the consequences if the story leaked. As the night unfolded, the game continued, fans cheered, and television cameras focused on touchdowns and penalties. But behind the curtain, a storm had started, a storm of fear, power, and secrecy that would ripple far beyond a single stadium. And though no one outside the organization knew it yet, the first cracks had begun to show. The early warning signs were clear to anyone paying attention: small inconsistencies in communication, a sudden flurry of off-the-record meetings, and a growing sense of unease among those who had always been confident in their positions. But for now, the incident remained buried in the shadows. The first chapter of a story that would demand answers, exposure, and accountability. By the following morning, the fallout had begun, but not in public. The media was still focused on scores and highlights, blissfully unaware of the storm quietly building behind closed doors. Inside the team's facilities, however, the atmosphere was tense, almost suffocating. Emails were flagged urgent, phone calls went unanswered, and whispers filled hallways once considered routine. Sources close to the situation described a series of meetings that stretched late into the night. The head coach convened his inner circle, attempting to regain control, but the usual authority was slipping. Trusted assistants who had been silent for years were now speaking up, sometimes hesitantly, sometimes sharply. Every word carried weight. Every decision, no matter how minor it seemed, risked exposure. It was clear that someone had leaked fragments of the incident, not to the public, but internally. The league office was aware, and pressure started coming from multiple directions. One executive reportedly instructed the team to contain the narrative, while simultaneously demanding updates that no one could safely provide. Staffers feared retaliation if they spoke, but paralysis brought its own dangers. Meanwhile, players sensed the tension. Veteran athletes who had navigated locker rooms for a decade or more noticed subtle shifts in sideline interactions. Huddles became more secretive. A play call might be questioned quietly, far from the field, in private corners of the stadium. Trust, the invisible glue that binds a team together, began to erode. The very culture of accountability was now under threat. As the week progressed, internal sources reported a strange silence from higher-ups. There were no public statements, no media briefings, only a quiet insistence that the matter remain internal. Yet behind that calm, decisions were being made: who to reprimand, who to protect, who might quietly be pushed out. Some of those choices were influenced not by the incident itself, but by politics, reputation, and the fear of precedent. Leaked communications, texts, emails, even voice memos painted a chilling picture. Individuals argued over what could be documented, what could be shared, and what must remain hidden. There were moments when even the most loyal staff questioned their own roles. Were they protecting the game or merely shielding power from scrutiny? And then came the silences that spoke louder than words. Coaches stopped speaking publicly about the event. Players were told to focus only on performance. Staffers received memos emphasizing discretion. Yet each unspoken warning carried more weight than any directive. Those in the know began to realize that the incident, small on its surface, had become something far larger, a test of control, loyalty, and influence. Pressure mounted with each passing day. Insiders described the atmosphere as toxic but invisible, a place where a single misstep could undo careers. Names were quietly flagged. Performance reviews were adjusted. One mid-level coordinator later confided that the tension was so extreme, even routine tasks felt like navigating a minefield. Every glance, every word, every decision scrutinized. By the end of that week, the first real cracks had begun to appear. Trust had eroded. Decisions had been made behind closed doors. And while the public saw only the next game, the league's internal landscape had been altered forever. Something was coming, something unavoidable, something that could no longer remain in the shadows. The full truth, the revelation that would shape the NFL, was still weeks away. But the stage had been set. The players, the staff, and the league itself were now locked in, each aware that the walls of secrecy were starting to crumble. The moment of exposure arrived quietly, almost imperceptibly, but its impact was seismic. Internal investigations confirmed what insiders had feared. The Sideline incident had triggered a cascade of poor decisions, miscommunications, and overlooked safety protocols. What began as a seemingly minor confrontation escalated into an organizational failure that touched multiple levels of the NFL. Emails and text records, obtained through anonymous sources, revealed that a critical safety concern had been ignored not maliciously, but out of fear. Fear of accountability, fear of reputational damage, fear of upsetting the delicate hierarchy that governs team and league operations. One staffer wrote, "We're worried more about optics than outcomes." Those words, seemingly innocuous, became a confession that reverberated across the organization. Players, once assured that protocols protected them, realized the truth. Internal pressure often outweighed safety. A star athlete, normally unshakable, admitted to questioning his own security on the field, unsure whether his voice would even be heard. Coaches who had decades of experience admitted later that they had been sidelined by internal politics, unable to act decisively when it mattered most. The consequences were immediate. Careers were quietly altered. A coordinator was reassigned. Staffers were given warnings that would linger on records for years. And the league, forced to acknowledge the incident in a controlled statement, faced scrutiny it could not fully contain. Publicly, it was just another week in the NFL. Privately, the message was clear. The game could no longer be trusted to operate behind the veneer of routine, professionalism. But perhaps the most chilling element was the culture it exposed. For decades, the league had prided itself on discipline, control, and order. Yet a single sideline incident, one overlooked argument, one tense decision revealed how fragile that structure could be. One overlooked glance, one unspoken warning, and the machinery of one of America's most powerful sports. Organizations teetered on the edge of chaos. This was not about scandal for entertainment. This was about power, silence, and decisions made in fear rather than principle. And it raises a question that can no longer be ignored. How many other moments, hidden from view, are shaping careers, safety, and the integrity of the sport? The story does not end here. The NFL remains under pressure, insiders remain cautious, and players remain aware that their safety and voice are conditional. And for the audience watching, the question is unavoidable. How much of what we see and don't see is controlled by fear rather than justice?